It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this informational session for the 2025 New Investigator Award Program. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to those of you in person and those joining us online. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. Since its launch in 2018, the New Investigator Award Program has been dedicated to providing valuable support and funding to new and early career investigators in Alzheimer's disease and related dementias research. I've had the privilege of working on this program for the past 4 years, and I can honestly say I am so excited about the future of this program. When we began, NIAP offered an average of 2 new investigator awards a year. Today, thanks to the dynamic leadership of Sarah Biber and Executive Director of NIAP, and Dr. Heather Snyder, Vice President of Medical and Scientific Relations at the Alzheimer's Association, we've seen a dramatic increase in funding and support. They recognize the vital importance of supporting new investigators and energizing innovation in Alzheimer's disease research. Their vision has not only expanded the program's funding, but also led to a collaboration with REC to provide expert one-on-one mentorship to all applicants who request a mentor. This growth reflects our shared commitment to fostering the next generation of ADRD researchers. We have an exciting lineup for you today. Dr. Biber and Dr. Snyder will kick us off by sharing the details of the 2025 New Investigator Award Program. Then Dr. Jose Cavazos, Chair of the REC Steering Committee, will discuss our mentorship program. We're also very fortunate to have 2 outstanding New Investigator Award winners with us, Dr. Corey McMillan and Dr. Yuriko Katsumata. They'll share how the New Investigator Award impacted their careers and offer valuable advice on applying for an award. At the end of our session, we'll have some time for Q&A, where you can ask questions about the program and the application process. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Sarah Biber and Dr. Heather Snyder.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with you. I am losing my voice, so Heather is going to take most of this. I'm going to kick us off, though. So thank you for joining us for the luncheon today. We are thrilled to be kicking off the 2025 New Investigator Award Program for this year. This is going to be so much fun, and we're so excited that you're here to learn more about it. And let me share a few pieces. So Heather's going to be providing an overview of the program. As Amy mentioned, we'll then have Dr. Cavazos joining us to talk about our mentorship program, and then we'll have some previous award winners here to speak about their experience with these awards and how that really helped amplify their careers. And then we'll have a Q&A. So I'm going to kick off, I'm going to pass off to Heather. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. And just maybe before we start, I just want to say that on behalf of the Alzheimer's Association, it's been an absolute pleasure to partner with the National Alzheimer's Coordinating Center, the REC, and many of you that are in this room, but also throughout this meeting and at ADRCs across the country. This has been a unique partnership and a unique program. We had an incredible response last year. We learned a lot in the program, but we also, I think, by the measures that we looked at, found it to be incredibly successful as well, and look forward to continuing that, some of those learnings coming into place going forward. It is highly competitive. We do anticipate this year that we will fund jointly 10 new investigator awards. They are $135,000 in direct costs per award. The indirects get sorted based on the award, and we can certainly talk about that in the Q&A if there's questions. This is open to any early career investigator that is affiliated with an ADRC. And I will note, and I think there's a slide in a moment about that word affiliated. This created a lot of questions last year about what affiliated was. And we really encourage you to talk to your ADRC director. And we've actually, in the RFA, and that might be another side advice, read the RFA. Within the RFA, we do give a number of specific examples of what is considered affiliated. We got a lot of input, a lot of advice from the NAC Steering Committee and others in how we define that to be as clear as we possibly can. But when in doubt, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. We also, and this was really, I think, the leadership of the REC, of the ADRC RECs, added in a component that is incredibly unique to this program that in my knowledge doesn't exist in any other funding program that's out there. And that is that you're paired with a mentor during your application process. So of course, we all hope to have everybody funded. Just with the numbers, that's not going to be possible, but we do hope that the process will help support individuals in their career and in that journey. And so that mentor to give advice, to give input as the application is being developed to go forward. And we'll talk about that in a moment. This is open, and there was a lot of confusion last year. This is not only for projects that are using NAC data, although we would love to see those. So that is certainly welcome. This is the entire spectrum of AD/ADRD research. And of course, if you have questions, ask, ask, ask. So a little bit about the application process. And step one, and this might be step 1, step 2B, step 3B, step 4B, read the RFA. Read the RFA, and read the RFA again. This gives you information about the eligibility, but it also has a lot of information in terms of the proposal requirements and what we may be looking for, and actually what will be reviewed and how applications will be reviewed as well. And if something's not clear to you, ask those questions. We will have a webinar on October 24th where we'll go into greater detail and show you information about the portal and some of the other information that's out there. But for many of you, you're likely familiar with the application portal that the association uses, Proposal Central, and that allows you, it really walks you step by step in terms of the application process. Every application requires a letter of intent be submitted, and that is the time when you can also request a mentor during that letter of intent stage. That is a required step, and I'll talk about that review in a moment. For those that then move forward to the proposal stage, that is also then to be well submitted through Proposal Central. We won't accept hard copies or paper copies in any way. So a little bit about the review process. This is conducted by the NAC Scientific Review Committee in collaboration with Alzheimer's Association reviewers. Many of you serve in all of those roles and wear multiple hats. I see a few people here that do double duty quite regularly. The letter of intent, now this is different from other Alzheimer's Association programs because I also see a number of people in this room that have been funded by or are in the process of applying to the association. These are not being reviewed for the scientific merit. They are being reviewed for whether they fit the RFA and the eligibility based, again, on the RFA. So that is how they are being reviewed at this point in time, assuming that they meet that criteria, they're from an ADRC, they're from an investigator that's affiliated with an ADRC, and that criteria is met, they'll go forward to application. Now, last year, we did go back to each ADRC director and verify that affiliation. So just a note on that as well. For those that then move forward to the application stage, in the proposal, each proposal is assigned to a selection of reviewers that have expertise in the topic area, and we really look to make sure, particularly for multidiscipline approaches, that we have that expertise included, including statistical expertise and others, that then we'll review that, and that can be both based on biomedical or social behavioral psychosocial research. So again, full spectrum of science is welcome in this program. Once the online reviews are done, they then go to a review panel, and I see a couple people in this room that participated in that. It was a very long 6-hour session. We were incredibly, it was 6 hours. We were incredibly grateful to the folks that joined us for the entire 6 hours and really discussed the merit of all the applications. So not only were they getting the online feedback, but then they got the additional feedback from that process as well. So the mentorship program, and this is something that can be requested, again, at the LOI stage. Of those last year, so when we look back at last year, 77% of applicants requested a mentor and then were matched by NAC and the ADRC REC team. So that's a pretty significant number. Of those that matched, 80.2% of the applicants, the mentees, felt that the mentor and that this process helped them strengthen their proposal. So hopefully that wasn't only true for this particular application, but other applications, that feedback and that input was part of that process, or was a bigger picture support for the individual. 92.2% of the applicants expressed a confidence in the guidance that they received and that will apply in those future cycles. And 95.4% of mentors expressed an interest in doing this again. So really appreciative on both sides of applicants being willing to participate in that as a pilot program, as well as all of the REC leadership and mentors that participated in this as well. So a few key timelines. I mentioned the webinar. This is on October 24th. The letter of intent deadline is November 8th. This is also when you must request a mentor by. The application deadline is January 16th, so those will be moved to applications, and then the deadline is January 16th. And then we anticipate announcing the award recipients at the meeting in May. As we did last year, we will work to send those notifications prior so that you're not learning about the decision in the room. There will be absolutely no exceptions to the LOI deadline. I'm a bit of a bleeding heart, so you can give me a good story and I'll let you in. But that is not true for this program. So it doesn't matter how good your story is. It doesn't matter what you say. Absolutely no exceptions. So please plan early. Plan your submission early. Get it in. Don't wait for there to be an internet crash or something at those final minutes. There will be no exceptions made. And so you can learn more at the QR code here. And again, we're here to ask questions, and you can always reach out at any point in time. You can register for the webinar here, and we'll make these slides available, right? These slides should be available through the portal, the website portal, so you'll be able to link for this, and this will go through a little bit more of the details that we have. And you can always reach out to Sarah or myself at any given time. And so with that, I'm going to pass it on to the mentorship team leads from the REC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather and Sarah. I am Jose Cavazos from UT Health San Antonio, one of the institutions of the South Texas ADRC, and the current chair for the REC committee, the research education component. Let's see, here is the slides. As you heard, this is something very unique to grant applications, and that is the REC is interested in career development, in helping applicants to develop better and stronger grants. And we were very fortunate that our community of faculty across the entire network of ADRCs have been participating as potential faculty mentors. But we need to know about it. This is part of the reason why there's no exception. We need to know by November 8th who needs a mentor and what type of expertise you need if it is not available, particularly in the center where you are. So we try to do matches based on their research expertise and background as best as we can. And we provide, we are not involved in the review of the applications. What we do is try to make an application better. And as you saw, 80% of mentees felt that the mentor was able to bring in something that was critical to be able to put together an application. I know that the person that was from that got funded from our center received a lot of support from another person, and he was very grateful about this. In any case, mentors and mentees will conduct the review and feedback sessions as the application is being written between November and January. And so what we do during that time is going to be under the leadership of Dr. Susie Stark from WashU. Susie, can you raise? So Susie's on that side of the table. But the steering committee, we are going to be working, trying to do the best mentorship matches so that these activities do occur and happen. Again, the benefits, expert guidance. We're going to try to bring in somebody who is in the area of, and is an experienced researcher who has been in the study sections. Generally speaking, the majority of these individuals are senior investigators. It's personalized, it's flexible, it can be virtual. In fact, the majority of the interactions are virtual, but ideally, people are able to meet in person at some point in the future. It could be asynchronous, meaning sending, this is my section of specific aims, this is my section of experimental approach, this is my gap of knowledge, have I articulated the gap of knowledge appropriately enough, etc. And in the end, what we have are stronger proposals, and that's what is the most critical component in any grant writing workshop. So how do you request? It's very simple. In the letter of intent that is being submitted through the Proposal Central, there is actually a check mark. I want a mentor, okay? That's an important check mark. So that's how you request it. No, you don't put it necessarily in it's great if it is written in the letter, in the actual letter, but the box is critical because, everything is abstracted through the system. And the ideal situation is that individuals will set a time for meeting virtually at least twice, but as I said, there might be some multiple other weekly interactions between that time. That's a picture of Henrik, I can tell, from Biomarkers. Again, meeting with an individual in the grant writing, and I think that was at DC. But in the end, these interactions are networking that you may find some of the future leaders and have, a more effective social network. Again, there's going to be, what happens is there is these interactions, there is a mid-program check-in that the team, mentorship team does, from the RECS steering committee, and we have an end-of-program evaluation survey with a follow-up a year later to see what level of interaction happened in the program. So we're interested from an evaluation point of view how to make this program more effective. And we also are looking for new mentors. So any of the faculty here in the room, please consider signing up. There's a QR code, and confirm your participation by November 8th so that we have a roster. Last year we had about 60 individuals, and some of us did multiple mentees. But the point is, this is a community of mentors nationally from the ADRC network, supporting the future leaders of the workforce of the ADRC community. And thank you for your continued support. Again, deadlines, November 8th. Make sure that you check the box. Remember, it's box, not just in the letter of intent. And then this is what happens between November 22 and January 15, and applications are due, and then you have a couple of surveys. And connect. We are here to help. Again, I cannot give you, I do not participate in the review process precisely because my intent is to help as many people and have no conflict of interest. But there are many people who are also in the review panel. I'm in the NISD, for example, NINDS case study section, happy to help with career development applications. So happy to connect, and Dr. Stark and myself and Dr. Rondek will be available at the end of this presentation. And we have the feature presentations. Believe is Dr. Katsumata, come over. Yes, that's forward.
Hello, I'm Yuriko Katsumata. I'm from the University of Kentucky. Thank you for giving this great opportunity. So today I'm talking about my application strategy for NAC New Investigator Award that I used when I submitted the grant proposal. So I'm gonna show a little bit about my background. The 2013, I entered the PhD program in the epidemiology and biostatistics. So at that time, I was a research assistant of Dr. David Fordor, who is the statistical geneticist. So at that, I didn't have any knowledge about the genetics, but under his supervision, I learned the genetics analysis about gene and the neuropathology or the neurodegenerative disease. Then I graduated in 2017, and then after that, I got a position as a research assistant professor in the same place, University of Kentucky, and I involved in the Sanders Brown Center on Aging, and also the College of Public Health. And in 2022, and I got the new NAC New Investigator Award, and then since then I'm involved in my project and then doing research that I will show later. And now, in July, I was promoted to the research associate professor. Thank you. So my new investigator hour project is the pathway-specific polygenic score on mixed pathology. As you know, that the pure dementia, like a pure AD, pure late, is very, it's not common. So actually, the older brain has a mixed neuropathology. So like A-beta, tau, which are hallmark of Alzheimer's disease, so other protein, TDP-43, and alpha-synuclein, and the cerebrovascular diseases. So we call the mixed pathology. The previous study, we showed around 20% the demented people had 4 protein, TDP-43, the alpha-synuclein, along with the A-beta and tau. So that's why we focus on the mixed pathology in this project. And also my expertise is genetics, so my interest is that mixed pathology and biological pathway specific polygenic risk score. The polygenic risk score is calculated by the genetics and then the GWAS summary statistics. That is my project. In the first work, our paper published in the Alzheimer and the Dementia Journal. Then at that time, we used the dementia reduction method to explain the multiproteopathies. And the second work, and for the polygenic risk score and the mixed pathology, I presented the AAIC this year. So then I wanted to show my strategy for to generate the research proposal. So I believe most important pages are specific aim and approach. So I think that many reviewers read first in the specific aims, right? So if your specific aim is actually boring, reviewer wouldn't carefully read the rest of it, right? So that's why I believe specific aim is the most important page. and also approach. Why? Because I had several chances to see the proposal and the score sheet. So I realized the rejected proposal got the low, not low, but the worst score of approach. So significant innovation investigator, there are not so big difference among the proposal, but rejected proposal had a low, worse score in approach, and also accepted proposal had the better score in the approach. So that's why I believe that the specific aims, the approach, is the most important pages. So in my case, I just think about my topic that, that to start writing the proposal, you have to think about what I wanted to do. Right? So in my case, my interest was mixed pathology and genetics. That is the two big keywords for me. So then I was thinking, what is the knowledge gap? So what we know now, currently know, what we don't know. Right? So for example, as I told you, the pure AD is not common. Okay. So that's why mixed pathology is common in the aged brain. And there are no optimal classification to define the mixed pathology now. And then, so that's why first two is becomes my specific aims. And also genetic risk of mixed pathology is now unknown. And also diverse biological pathway may be differentially responsible for mixed pathology. So the last two what becomes my specific aim 2 and 3. So first two sentences is specific aim 1. So then this is I was thinking that the knowledge gap, and they make a specific aim 1, 2, 3 first. So then to approach is to fill the knowledge gap. What should I do and what I can do? So first question is how to define the mixed pathology. Okay. So that is for example, that I'm using a NAC neuropathology data. So there are some variables to represent the A beta, tau, and TDP43, alpha-synuclein, and this is the last one, is the hippocampal sclerosis. So if I make some mixed pathology combination, there are more than 3,000 ways in the potentially combinations. So that means that if I just run the regression model with mixed pathology as outcome, one specific synapse, so the outcome category should have more than 3,000. So it's impossible to do the regression analysis, right? So that's why, so at that time I was thinking, oh, I should use a dimensional reduction method. Then in approach, I will write some dimensional reduction method. So maybe you can write like this one. I will apply dimensional reduction method. It's not bad, of course. But if I was a reviewer, how this applicant will do dimensional reduction method, right? So that's why you need to more give a concrete sentence. So we will apply the item response theory, which is dimensional reduction method. So that is the item response theory is one of the deduction method I used in the first paper. It's not bad, but still, if a reviewer is very familiar with item response theory, they are this applicant, which model this applicant will use. There are the many models. Okay, so that's why. I will apply for generalized partial credit model, which is within the item response theory. that is more concrete. Okay, so reviewer would think, oh, this applicant can do this, could do this, the analysis, right? But I prefer, actually, I will apply generalized partial credit model with the item response theory, and the generalized partial credit model will be run with MART-R package. So this is my strategy to write the approach. So I will usually write the detail as much as possible. Because this is a new investigator award, so you shouldn't hide your knowledge. Okay, so then I had 3 mentors. So Dr. David Pordo, who is my the PhD chair, dissertation chair, and also Dr. Peter Nelson, who is a neuropathologist, and also Dr. Erin Abner, who is an epidemiologist. So they have a different, completely different expertise. So then I'm now working with the genetic, working on the polygenic risk score with Dr. David Ford. And the neuropathology, mixed neuropathology part, I'm working with Dr. Peter Nelson. And the model, statistical model, I'm working with Dr. Erin Abner. So they have a different expertise. So my proposal is incorporate their expertise. There I combined all the method, their knowledge, and they make made my proposal. So then after that, I promoted to the associate professor. So I became the mentor, from mentee to mentor. And then Dr. Shang Wu, who presented the yesterday workshop, she got the New Investigator Award this year. She's one of our postdoc in our lab. Okay. So active the prospect. So for the prospective applicant, so have multiple mentors with a different expertise. That is so important. So sign up the mentorship program. So if you cannot find the different mentor, you can sign up in the NAC mentorship program, and reach out to the other mentors. Okay. So then, that is I told you, generate attractive specific aims. So, and write a detailed approach page. And do not procrastinate. That is the most important. Okay. Because what? Because I recommend you spend more time to polish your proposal, especially specific aims. When I was a reviewer, I saw some proposal which has a disparity between the specific aim pages approach. So maybe this applicant changed the approach, but he didn't change the specific aims, something like that. So that's why I don't procrastinate. You should spend more time to polish again. And get the suggestion, the comment from people, as many as possible, like your family, maybe your colleagues, so from a layperson. So you're a specialist, so you know everything. But the reviewer may not, right? So if you cannot explain the layperson, it's harder to convince reviewers. And finally, I wanted to express my appreciation to NAC, which gave us the great opportunity to do my research, and also Sanders Brown Center on Aging, Dr. Van Eldik, here, and also mentor Dr. Fardo, Dr. Nelson, and Dr. Abner. Thank you for your attention.
And now we'd like to welcome up Dr. Corey McMillan from Penn ADRC to talk about new investigator support from genotype to genetic program.
That's me. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for the opportunity and to speak about how transformative the NIAP New Investigator program was for my career and career development. And it's been a pleasure throughout my early career to work with NIAP and the Alzheimer's Association in other pursuits as well. So I thought I would start a little bit to talk a little bit about my winding roads to my career. I experimented with several things as an undergraduate and actually changed majors a couple times, dropped out of college once, and eventually fell in love with cognitive neuroscience, and that's what I decided to pursue in my career. This started off as fMRI investigations in healthy adults that I did as a research coordinator in Murray Grossman's lab. And after doing that for a few years, I decided I wanted to study language more detailed, and I actually went to graduate school and studied psycholinguistics and did some work looking at articulatory imaging of speech models, measuring ultrasounds and palate. That was a very computational pursuit, but I really wanted to get back into understanding language in the brain. So in deciding where to go for a postdoc, I had a few options, but ultimately decided to do my postdoc with Murray Grossman, who I'd worked with before, because I knew of how strong his mentorship was and how much he impacted people's careers and how he also gave people the direction to and freedom to pursue novel topics. There's a lot of freedom in his lab to ask new questions, and he was well funded, so you could collect as much things as you wanted on the MRI scanner and tinker, and that was very supportive. But I also had John Trojanowski and Virginia Lee down the hall from me, and they were making transformative discoveries and discovered TDP-43 in about 2007. I started my postdoc in 2008, so this was all the talk in the hallways, and everyone was excited about that. And I kind of felt like cognitive neuroscience was academic, and I wasn't really feeling self-fulfilled in what I was doing. And I knew that there were now targets to treat FTD, and instead of studying FTD as a language model in order to understand how language is processed in the brain, which is a very academic pursuit, I wanted to pursue translational medicine. And in talking with Murray and John Trojanowski, we decided that they would help co-mentor me to a career to understand more of the biology of disease. So in my K Award, which was awarded in about 2014, I started hanging out with John and Virginia in the Center for Neurodegenerative Disease Research and learned about genetics and neuropathology, and had a K Award focused on imaging genomics and how to integrate big data in order to understand biomarkers of frontotemporal degeneration. And this was a very sort of exciting time because I also got to hang out with Eddie Lee, who was my peer, and he was just a couple years ahead of me. And it was great to learn about all of these new things and start to apply my computational background to addressing these questions. Murray always had a tradition of asking people the day they got their K Award, notice of award, was, what's your R01 going to be about? And I try to hold that tradition now with my trainees. But it's an important question, and also John and Murray wanted people to be independent and not just do things in their laboratories, but to pursue their own research pursuits. And sometimes in my early career, I felt like I was in the side of the poster hall presenting a topic that people maybe weren't that interested in, and that the topic was maybe a little bit wacky. And John would always tell me, if you're in the center of the room, you're in the wrong room. But instead you want to be like in the periphery, and he would talk about how he was always in the Sunday afternoon session after everyone got their flights talking about tau pathology when nobody thought that tau mattered. So he was always supportive as well as thinking of the wacky things. So I got my K Award, and I was trying to think about what my R01 was going to be, and I knew it needed to be something different from what Murray and John were doing because I needed to distinguish myself. And at about that time, there was a concept that had been around for a long time about tau pathology that had various different names in the literature over history. This was not a new sort of concept, but it wasn't really formalized or characterized in a great way. So John Crary in 2014 produced a paper, The Neuropathology of Primary Age-Related Tauopathy, or PART, we call it, which for folks that aren't familiar with is Brock stage spreading of tau pathology in the same way as Alzheimer's disease, but there's really no amyloid pathology. And there was a bunch of neuropathologists on this paper, and then the other neuropathologist wrote a response paper that kind of criticized the concept of PART. And there was a quote in that paper that said, "There's no way neuropathologically, genetically, or clinically to differentiate PART from Alzheimer's disease." And John, always pushing me to accept a challenge and my new interest in neuropathology and genomics, I decided to take this as a challenge to launch my career. So I wrote 2 pilot grants. One was focused on cognitive aspects of PART, because the quote suggested that there was no way to distinguish PART from Alzheimer's disease cognitively. And that grant was a Alzheimer's Disease Research Center and Institute on Aging, which is an associated center at Penn, that sponsored a development award. So that was an initial pilot grant. And then to address the genetic questions, I wrote a grant to the NIAP New Investigator program, which the goal was really to perform the first genetic characterization of PART. And we did this in the Penn ADRC cohort, and then also used NAC data in order to do this. And it was a pretty straightforward proposal that was a very simple question, but important to understand more what the mechanisms are of PART and whether it does differ from Alzheimer's disease. And I'm just highlighting some of the initial results here, and not focusing on scientific detail today. But we did show that there are genetic differences between PART and Alzheimer's disease that not only included ApoE, but also several other risk factors that had been associated with Alzheimer's disease. And since there's been a GWAS where other factors have been identified as well that we collaborated on. So those 2 preliminary pilot awards were really transformative because they really formed the basis of the preliminary data for my first R01 award. And in that, we really focused on biological aging mechanisms of primary age-related tauopathy and Alzheimer's disease and how they're related and different. We've performed the first EWAS of PART. We have a preprint that I was hoping to get up before today. It'll be up any day now. But we've identified 13 new methylation loci that are associated with tau pathology in PART. And we've done some additional bioinformatics work relating this to gene expression. And we've identified different pathways that involve a synaptic pathway and a immune-based pathway that relate to the spread and magnitude of tau pathology. But also in this work in my first R01, I also learned to appreciate that genetics doesn't actually explain everything, and I guess this is obvious, but you think in the world that you're in. But we've also started to think more about disparities, and in particular, we're integrating epigenetics with disparities to better understand these things. And what we've shown is that Black individuals have more accelerated epigenetic aging than white individuals, and this has downstream consequences with cognitive impairment. And we're starting to look at modifiers of this, like PM2.5 exposures and neighborhood density and other social factors. So taking into account this genetic perspective and also a social determinants perspective, and parallel, returning to my K award focused on FTLD, we've had the real pleasure to, I'm the MPI of a program project grant that actually spans from molecules to complex syndromes, working with the trainees, former trainees of Murray and John. All of us who are leading projects were once a trainee of them. And this spans doing cryo-EM studies of TDP43 pathology at a 0.3 millimeter resolution, up to looking at area deprivation index in 0.1 mile radiuses. And we're doing everything in between, from spatial transcriptomics, multiplex immunohistochemistry, ultra-high resolution neuroimaging, and trying to bring it all together into a package. So again, the foundational opportunity I had to better dive into genetics, supported through the NAC New Investigator program, And what I learned in the subsequent R1 really led to our success in this program project, which we're super proud of. So I thought I would just give some basic bullet points of what I think some strategies are for a successful application. And I think the most important thing is to identify an impactful research question. There's many talented scientists that have many great computational skills, and I come from a computational background, but having great computational skills isn't enough, and we need to think about how we can apply those talents in order to have impactful influence on research, and really thinking about what questions are really going to change the field or move things forwards. And they don't have to be complicated questions. They can be a single, simple, impactful question. When now I often review these types of grants, including these, and the perspective that I take into it is something that Murray Grossman taught me as well, was to think of the woman or the man, a plan, and a fan. So it's not just the approach. People get really focused on just the approach itself, and you really need a full package of who's the person, who are you, and how are you going to benefit from this award, and how does your background help you demonstrate that you're the person to do this award. What's your plan? You need to have a strong approach, of course, but also how are you going to interact with your environment and other things, and not just be focused in the statistical detail, but really the full picture. And then importantly, you need a fan. So you need a mentor, you need an environment that are going to support you, and how are you going to interact with them, and who is that person. It's valuable to demonstrate growth and how this will launch your career. I think when these types of grants are reviewed, my impression as a reviewer is I don't get stuck in the tiny details of whether you're going to control for this statistical test or that statistical test or things. But what I want to know is that you're the person that should be doing this research, and how is this really going to help you move on to getting a K award or getting your R1 or things. So importantly, think of the big picture and not the tiny details. And then importantly, you want to leverage valuable resources. So you want to think about your local ADRC infrastructure. How can you collaborate with another ADRC? ADRCs are amazing because they have neuropathology cores, they have clinical cores, they have recs and various programs, and you want to make sure you try to integrate that stuff into your proposal to not just be in the periphery of your ADRC, but really use this as an opportunity to engage in your ADRC and become part of this wonderful community. Think about broadening your mentorship team. Even if you have an awesome local mentor, talking to other mentors never hurts. I've never heard anyone say that they talked about their career with someone and it wasn't worthwhile. So take advantage of this opportunity. And if you don't have a great local mentor, this is your time to be able to find someone that you could potentially connect with and find the support that you need that you feel like you're not getting in your local institution. And then importantly, think about the resources and other repositories that you can leverage in order to be successful. And also think about whether what you're doing is redundant. So do you really need to collect 20 MRI scans that are the same as the stuff that's already being collected as part of SCAN or Clarity or other activities? Or can you leverage these massive resources in order to be successful? And then finally, I thought I would just wrap up with some important broader career lessons, which hopefully I've emphasized in talking about John and Murray, but I think strong mentorship is just essential for success. And if you don't have a mentor, again, this is a great opportunity to start looking for an alternative one. I think it's really important to believe in the system and be patient as you work through it. It's a long process. We get rejected a lot. Rejection never actually slows down as you grow in your career. In fact, you probably get rejected more. But I think the people that are successful are the ones that become resilient to the rejection. And it's just part of the system, and you just have to slog your way through it. But importantly, networking is never easy, but it does get easier. For me, I was early in my career, I would disappear during a poster session and not want to talk to people. I was very anxious about talking to people. I'm still anxious about talking to people, but I've learned that it is really important, and it does get easier the more you do it. So take advantage of opportunities like today, it's great that NAC and Alzheimer's Association organize a smaller group to bring people together, so it's maybe not as intimidating. And go up to people and talk to them. Again, I've never met anyone who has been approached about their science and like didn't want to talk about it. So it's just that small hurdle to do it. Again, I've already mentioned rejection is inevitable, but persistence wins in the end. So keep going. If you don't get the NAC New Investigator Awards this year, apply next year and take what you learned through the experience to do it again. And maybe you'll pick up a second mentor next year that might help push you over the hump. And then lastly, small wins accumulate to large gains. $135,000 doesn't really go that far in all practicalities, but what it does is it seeds a career that has an extraordinary impact. So take advantage of these opportunities and try to accumulate these gains for your future success. Finally, science is a team sport. We all have to work together in order to be successful. There's way too many folks to acknowledge that I can fit on an acknowledgements slide. So I'm starting to rely more and more on icons and photographs. But lastly, I'd like to acknowledge the support of my mentors, Murray Grossman and John Trojanowski, who we sadly lost in the past couple of years. Were extraordinary to not just helping my career, but many people who are at this meeting. So thanks.
Thank you so much. I'd like to now welcome up to the stage all of our speakers for some Q&A. And with this Q&A, anyone in the room is welcome to head up to the mic in the center of the room and ask their question. We will call upon you when ready. But we will also be taking questions from folks online as well. Please feel free to put your question in the chat box. We'll read it aloud for you, or raise your hand and be patient and we can call on you. I'd like to kick things off with a question from Sarah Dunlop online. Sarah asks, can you elaborate on when would be the best time in regards to training to apply? What makes a successful application?
Okay, just keep talking. I think that's a great question, and I may actually ask some of the folks that served as reviewers for your recollections of what were, for the applications you reviewed, what really stuck out to you as strong, or maybe even on the other side, things that were somewhat of the fatal flaws as you were reading applications. And I know, Corey, you reviewed some, so maybe I'll start with you.
I think that there's no right or wrong answer, unfortunately, but I do think that having some preliminary data is valuable. So maybe not worrying in your first year of your postdoc or second year of your postdoc even. You want to try to establish that you have some track record in the lab that you're in. So maybe focusing on that first paper in your first couple years of postdocing is more important than writing the proposal. I think also, these are kind of reviewed as a launch pad of your career. So if it's too early, you're not quite ready for how this is going to build up to your K or your RO1. Having said that, more shots on goal is better as well. So there's no real right or wrong.
Jose?
I will say, very importantly, make the application easily readable for the reviewer. It needs to be clear that there is a purpose that is feasible and that is compelling. So if you do not have a compelling reason why this research matters to us within the first 3 paragraphs, you are going to be losing the reviewer's attention. And if our attention wanders, then we're going to start doing what we like to do, which is to find all the flaws. Whereas on the other hand, if you start making the case that there is an incredible gap of knowledge, and that for this gap of knowledge, I have this novel hypothesis, that I'm going to approach it with this particular set of things that make sense. So the other comment that actually she made is very importantly, if you are changing something in the experimental approach, make sure that the components that are going to be concordant in the experimental aims. And go back in the experimental aims. If you change something there, go back to the experimental approach where you propose perhaps a slightly different techniques. And lastly, the section of pitfalls and alternative approaches needs to be thoughtful. If you already can think about a big gap, the reviewers will see many others. And so be sure that you have, a plan. You don't need to put all of the alternative choices or all the alternative statistical analysis, but have a plan that you will have somebody to reach out to perhaps address or spin. At the end of the day, reviewers will look at a proposal and say, hey, if this research happened, what will we have? I mean, does it matter what we have? And if it's just kind of mix and bag, or it only is one way, high win, but high probability of losing, it's not going to fly very high.
Thank you. Do you want to comment?
Yeah, I agree that actually, I think that if you don't have any preliminary result, it's not good timing. And also, that you don't know that some knowledge gap, or you don't have any idea, or so this is not that timing. So if you have some preliminary result that from your group, that you have some publication as a first author and co-author, and then also you have some knowledge gap, and then maybe there are some the between your publication and the new thing. So then that is like the space to create your proposal.
Yeah, I think the other theme I want to return to is this: we want you to reach out to your mentors. And some of the best ways that you can decide if you're ready and if you're the ideal candidate is by pitching your idea in a really strong aims page to your mentors. And they don't have to be local mentors. They can be across the ADRC network. And if you're struggling to reach out to find some of those mentors, I guarantee there is a RECT coordinator at every ADRC that is completely committed to your success. So reach out to that individual. And we know lots of folks from around the network that we can help you find.
And I will say, we did have a number of people that did submit letters of intent and then made the decision not to go forward, and likely it was a result of some of those discussions. And I would also note that not everybody we saw did have preliminary data. I do think it gave that edge to many, but it is somewhat in how you present the case. And I think one of the themes we heard here is really having that strong scientific question that you're asking, the impact of that question, and the rationale of how you're looking to address that question as well. So we did see a mix that came in. Sarah?
Yeah, and I think if you're if you're on the fence, submit a letter of intent. It only takes about 15, 20 minutes. You can get connected with a mentor. You can get some more feedback, get some more practice. So I think that's a really great option for folks.
Thanks. I think there was a question here.
There it goes. Thanks so much. My question is about mentors. I want to be able, James Brewer from UC San Diego, to be able to help bring some of this information back to our trainees and early career investigators at my institution. I wanted to ask about the mentorship program. So the mentorship program, it sounds super innovative, awesome, very, very helpful. So clearly you would want to check that box, but my specific question is, is it actually known to the review committee that they checked the box, did not check the box, and is there any influence of who was selected as a mentor, because then it'd be doubly impactful in their success of the
So
pathway.
we provide the information of the pairing, goes back to Heather and
Yeah,
Kim?
the answer is no.
Okay,
Yeah, the answer-
not part of it. That's good.
Yeah.
So that's good. I think that's good from a process standpoint.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Clearly-
actually kept very separate. It's actually,
Exactly.
that's completely done by the NAC staff
Yep.
outside of the grant system. And I will say that there were instances in the review that it was, this is an example that maybe the mentor didn't do this or that. And in some of those cases, there wasn't a mentor, but the reviewers don't know that, and we don't disclose that on the call.
And we do
I
track-
actually don't know that either.
Yeah, yeah.
We do track, though, right, mentorship and who use mentorship. We do know that a higher percentage of the folks much higher percentage of the folks that do end up getting funded
Yeah.
have selected.
Yeah, clearly a
mentorship
good
as an
idea, but
option.
not objectively in the.
Yeah, there
review
were, I
criteria.
think, one or two that did not have a mentor that were funded.
Yep.
So-
And then the second piece, there is a lot of discussion about mentor, but I took your advice, read advice 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. There is no, the review criteria are very much like an NIH grant, except not like a K grant. There is no mentorship section review criteria. Is it somehow infused in or not within the review process? Because somehow you're seeing the team, the fan piece, so it probably does influence a little bit, but just trying to get at the process here.
Yeah, the answer is still no.
Still
I mean,
no, it's about the
I think it is though, and that is really part of where the steering committee comes into play, the NAC steering committee, because there is that bigger reflection of the ADRC in that environment. And so there was a lot of discussion on the review call, and anyone can add into this. There was a lot of discussion on the review call about, yes, they're leveraging their environment or they're leveraging their strengths, or there were a couple that had partnered with other ADRCs, which was an example somebody had given as well. So there was that reflection on the call, but not specifically on.
And I just want to give the credit to where credit is due. Dr. Liz Head from UC Irvine was the person that developed this leadership, this mentoring review component, and certainly, it's a committee, a steering committee, group effort, but Liz was the person that developed that.
We, so the question was, how does NAC versus Alzheimer's Association funding get decided for this award?
So since we doubled the amount of the award and direct costs, NAC will fund one of the awards, and that goes to the highest ranked proposal. Yep. And there's a different indirect amount for each of the awards. Yep.
So we do have one more question online. Does this program align with exploratory projects where not much preliminary data is generated?
Yeah, maybe Corey, do you want to comment on that? Because I think this it's very dependent, which is, a little bit of the challenge here.
Yeah, and maybe I was going to backpedal a little bit from what I said before about having preliminary data. So I think you want to have, there's two ways that you can establish rigor in a scientific application. One is what people call foundational rigor, which is there other data or papers that support the idea of pursuing what you're doing. The other way of establishing rigor is having your own preliminary data that supports your hypothesis. So I think as long as there's rigor, it can be in either of those ways. It probably enhances an application if your work provides both the foundational rigor and the preliminary data. So if you can show that I have a paper that establishes the precedence that genetics matters in this disease, then that's great. And then if you have preliminary data that supports a hypothesis that you're testing in your proposal, that's a doubly great thing. But I think as long as you have one or the other, I think that that's fine.
So maybe just to the asker of that question, I think that comes back to getting a mentor and having the conversation with the mentor on what may be some of the best strategy, submitting the LOI, getting at least the check that you can go forward, having the conversation with a rec mentor, and then making a decision on the application and whether now is the right time or maybe there's some other things you want to do prior to that submission. Does that sound? And please introduce yourself and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Annika. I'm from the University of Washington. I'm the administrator. And my question is, last year when there was the number of awards increased, massive influx of the people from our center who applied. We also have a very large number of trainees affiliated with our center, so we have a very big pool to draw from. While I don't expect like the dozen or so that applied last year from the University of Washington, is there an unofficial way you want to deal with one university with potentially a lot of applicants? Is there sort of an internal number we should aim for, or is anyone who's interested and affiliated, we keep on shooing them through the process with encouragement?
It's really up to the individual ADRC,
Okay.
what they want to do. We did think about, we had about 150 applications last year and some really outstanding ones. Our goal is to add value for all applicants, right? Make sure they all come away with some value, which is why I reached out to the rec last year. I'm so glad they said yes about launching this mentorship program, because we wanted to make sure anybody who applies, right? 94% of applicants say that the mentorship they received is going to help them with their next grant application. So we see that as a win. We wish we could give out a higher percentage of awards, of course, but it's up to the individual ADRC. Yeah.
And the thing is, there's a ripple effect of all of this mentoring component, because you are submitting, as typically a grant, you kind of move it or repurpose it and submit it to something else. One of the trainees receive a KO1. Again, repurposing, same ideas, but, tightening, again, the RFA or the NOFO for NIH, tightening the requirements of the proposal that, so for example, that person needed to add all these career development components. But the point is, it made the applications better. And that's, in the end, altering the career arch of that individual.
I haven't read the RFA, but
But he will.
yeah, I will. And I have the link to sign up as a mentor on my phone. But I think it's worth making clear to ADRC personnel that multiple submissions can be submitted per ADRC, because I think in the what I consider the pre-COVID ages, pre-2018 when I applied, I think that when I applied, there was like a pre-ADRC selection committee, and I think there may be that impression of folks.
So we had a lot of questions about, how many centers are there? 37? We had about 37 people ask that question last year. There is not a limit that's set by this program. It is at the discretion of the ADRC director. We only had, I believe, one center that did restrict, maybe two, that did restrict from their center on the letters that the ADRC director, and they set the number of those applications, but from the other centers, we did not have that. You just heard somebody from WashU say that there were, from Washington say that there were over a dozen, and that was about right, yes. There was quite a number from certain centers, and so that was, I will say at the end, and this was by chance, this was also not a part of the program, when we had the 13 awardees, they were representative from 13 different centers, and that was by chance.
Quick question. If you have a collaborator, how do you, especially for those that have already received the award, how do you incorporate that into this grant? Like, can they, and I looked at the RFA a little bit, and I'm still a little bit unclear how I can discuss if I'm working in a lab that's helping me with a specific technique, how I can incorporate that into the grant.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple different ways that you can do that. So there are things within, kind of within the budget justification, within the bio sketches, you can include them as a key personnel, as a collaborator. In terms of that, you can then define that they're providing in-kind support, or perhaps it's budgeted support to the total or to that aspect. There are a few different places that can be. I think there's another place that's not in the application that I think is another attachment that gets uploaded that you can also describe it. So there's a couple different places. I think that might be one that, just depending on your specific situation, we could walk you through on where else you might be able to include that.
Yeah, I think one thing you want to make clear in your proposal is what your contribution is as well, especially if your collaborator is a more senior person. You don't want it to come across like this is a senior person using a junior investigator to get you know.
Because that came up in the review call. There were a couple instances where that was a discussion among the reviewers.
Hi, Linda Van Eldick from University of Kentucky. You mentioned in one of the early presentations that you were going to define a little bit more, in more detail what an affiliated person is that wants to apply. So what does it mean to be affiliated with an ADRC?
So we did spell this out further in the RFA, and I'm not going to remember it verbatim, but the general gist is that it is really up to the center director to determine what affiliation means. So it's all spelled out in detail. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, it's received
but
salary, is receiving salary, has an official position, has a formal collaboration, there's a whole, I think we have 5 or 6 different instances that we would consider affiliated, and then for others, it's at the ADRC director, because you do have to certify that they are affiliated with your ADRC. I think it goes a little bit to the last comment, though, is that, are you going to certify 25, or are you going to, and that's really, again, at the director's discretion.
And a key piece there is that you have to be able to administer the subcontract to them, right? So you have to be able to administer funds to them. That is the critical piece, right? So it has to be affiliated to the extent that you can do that. And that affiliation, however you define it for your center, needs to have been in place, before the application time. This shouldn't be something that's coming together just for this application.
So we do have another online question. What would be a good team size or number of collaborators for this application?
So I think the answer to this question is it depends, always on the question and the scope of work and what you need in order to achieve the aims of your study. So this is another great time to circle back to a mentor who can help you manage that and help you put together an optimal budget justification and approach so that you have a winning application.
Make it compelling. If it is not justified, it's not. What's the purpose? It's going to make it more complex.
Any other questions in the room?
There's
Oh. Could you come to the mics, because those online won't be able to hear? Thank you.
and identify yourself.
Hi, this is Mrs. Parsi from MGH. Just a quick question, maybe I missed on the point. Does the mentor give comments or feedbacks on the initial LOI? I mean, can we correct, do we have chance to correct it?
Oh, do you want to say?
So the LOI you turn in before you select the mentor, and it's just process to make sure you qualify for the award. So your mentor will not be involved until after the LOI.
Ah, okay.
Indicate on the LOI whether you would like to be connected with a mentor. That's critical.
And in the letter, indicate we're going to make assumptions based on on what the name of the application, of the title of the application is. But if you specifically need expertise in machine learning, spell it out.
Okay.
Obviously there might be somebody local that is helping you, and that will be part of your mentoring team or there. But if you want us to bring another individual outside to mentor you or pair you, please indicate specifically for what.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Other questions in the room?
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
The one thing I want to point out for your mentoring relationships is you as the mentee are coming to ask questions. So your mentor is not going to start calling you and asking you to see your specific aims on Wednesday. It is your responsibility to put things in front of them and make appointments and be earnest and ask for help, because they have a couple of mentees, and the ones that are going to get a lot of feedback are the ones that are going to be giving a lot of information. So please take responsibility. I think in the relationships I've had last year, those who were really proactive and got me things early got a lot more really useful feedback than those that waited until the day before the application.
Excellent piece of advice. Deb.
Dave Lahiri from ADRC. First of all, I thank all of you. Excellent program, and our own trainees benefited from this program. My question to you, this early stage careers, the time is very limited and their school of thought is also very limited. Can they submit the same application? Because the deadline is like K Award and NIH, January, all the same deadline. And the reason is that same idea may like someone else like NIH like, or Alzheimer's Association like, or the NAC, because the review committees are different. So is it possible for them to submit the same application to different agencies, including Alzheimer's Association, this NAC and K Award?
Yeah, I mean, we know that happened because we had this deadline and then we opened another program in January. We know people applied to both and then withdrew from the other if they received this application. There's some differences in eligibility. I think some of the structure format is a little bit different. The review criteria is a little bit different, and what you include in your application is different. So obviously, I think right-sizing the application, the ideas, some of the context, some of the text is appropriate. I think all funding organizations prevent essentially double dipping. So if you're funded in one, you need to ensure that that's not an issue with that double dipping of budget and overlap and the scientific overlap between applications.
Yeah.
So I think, yes, it can be repurposed. You can take that input. I think that's probably part of where that 90-some% of people saying this will be helpful came from. But be very cognizant of what that means.
Yeah, because it's the same
and the
question,
communication.
I received from all the trainees. And I'm talking about specific aims and everything, they keep the same. But as you mentioned, that they can have only one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're funded, if you happen to apply for 3 different programs and you use the exact same application and you get funded in all 3, you are going to have to turn down 2 of them. So just be very aware of that, very clear, and understand that, and if you don't, then that you're violating the grant agreements of all of those organizations, and it's illegal.
As a mentor, my guidance to trainees is for their K aims to take out one aim and break it down into sub-aims and make that be the foundational grants. And that provides like so there's no full overlap. Your K is, has enough unique stuff. And it also provides a way to iron out like 3 or 4 pages of a scientific plan for what's going to constitute like a major aim of your K.
So we're going to have to wrap this up. I just want to end by saying a huge thank you to Heather and her team and the Alzheimer's Association for partnering with us on this program again this year. It's been incredibly impactful. I want to thank the REC for partnering with us on the mentorship program again. I am so thrilled that you're going to be teaming up with us to provide support to applicants, and we're so grateful for all of you for your interest in the program and really hope that you'll consider submitting applications. We're here to help answer your questions and really are excited for next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you.